Hey, how's it going, everybody? It's Professor Tatum here. In this video, I want to quickly show you what to expect for your content quizzes, show you how to navigate everything for those. So let's go ahead and find the module for Content Quiz 1 and Exam 1 material. Remember, if we ever need help finding a module, we can always use this feature here. Hold down Control, press F for find, Command if you're using the Mac. Start typing the module you're looking for. Content Quiz 1, boom, taking me straight there. Then I'll just go ahead and pop that open. You'll see some material in here I've added. I'm going to go ahead and add this video in here as well once I'm done with it. But let's go ahead and pull open the review to get started. Now, this review will show you exactly what you can expect to see for your quiz. All of these quizzes moving forward will follow this exact same format. I'm going to go ahead and download and enable editing so I can get in here and really look at it good. So what you'll see here is you've got some matching terms that might show up on the exam, as well as some ID terms, okay? And these exact terms are the terms you want to know. So there's nothing that will show up on the exam that is not covered here on this review. Some things I want us to point out here, you'll notice that these quizzes will always be available on a Friday that's designated on the syllabus, and then they'll also be due by that following Monday, okay? Unless I state otherwise, this is almost always going to be the case. So it'll be available Friday afternoon, usually by the end of my last class. I'll write out on here what time it is that it'll be available. And then Monday, it'll be due the end of the day. Okay, so that gives you most of the day Friday, all day Saturday, all day Sunday, and all day Monday to knock this thing out. Okay, all you've got to do is find time to complete this thing. If you need extended time, it's built in. Okay, you just need to find the time and set it aside for yourself to knock this out. But you have several days to get this done. I do want to see responses written in your own words. Key thing I do want to stress here, once again, this is in the syllabus in different places, but remember that any responses that do not reflect any information coming from class sources will not receive credit. Definitely make sure you're using things like your lectures, your lecture notes, and your assigned readings and assigned videos. Those are the only sources you should be using for these quizzes and for your exams when we get there. Any response that starts telling me all kinds of names and dates and stuff that weren't covered in class, and especially if they're giving me all that and missing the key points that were covered in class, they're just not going to get any credit. Okay, and I'm being as straightforward about that as I can up front. Hopefully, we don't got to worry about that. By that standard, you should not need to be using any kind of AI bot for this. I want you to use your own words, your own writing based on what's covered in the class sources. All right. So here I pulled up the review for one of my 1301 classes. If you're in the 1302 class, you'll see different terms on here, but it's the same format, right? You've got this same type of review, same things all apply there. So make sure you're looking over these terms, trying to find them. And what I would recommend doing with these is popping open your document where you have your notes or the corresponding lecture slideshow. Then copy the term you're looking for. Start out on the first lecture, open it up, and then use that Control F feature. It'll give you a little search box, and you can try to find where you have that term, either in the slideshow or in your notes, so that you know where to start looking for information on that. With the matching, it's going to be pretty straightforward. You'll just have 10 matching terms, 10 descriptions. You match them up. ID terms. These are kind of fill in the blank ID terms. Really, all you're doing is filling in a template that I provided you. But essentially, your response should come down to telling me in 1 to 3 sentences what this term was and what happened with it. And then in another 1 to 3 sentences, it should tell me why it's historically significant. As a reminder, when we're talking about historical significance in our class, we're always talking about one of five things. Always either the first of something, or the last of something, or led to something else, or was an example of something else, or it demonstrated something else. And you should always be able to use those words. Okay, so you should maybe be able to say this term was historically significant because it led to, or it was historically significant because it was the first of, or because it was the last of, or because it was an example of, or because it demonstrated. If you cannot use those words, you need to rethink this. Okay, go look to your notes, see how it fits in with the bigger picture. Are we seeing it as an example of something bigger? Are we seeing something else happen immediately after as a result of it? Those are the kinds of things we're looking for there. So I do want to show you now a sample of what this quiz will be like on your end. Again, I'll use the 1301 here as an example. 1302, y'all's quiz will look exactly the same. I'll go back to the same module here, Content Quiz 1, and I'm going to pop open the sample content quiz. Okay, begin. Waiting, hoping for a better day, trying to get home, trying to find a way inside, waiting. Okay, so once you get in here, you'll see exactly what the review told you. You're going to have matching terms, and then you're going to have ID terms. All right, for the matching, you just got a list of terms, well, 10 different terms. And then here you'll have a drop down menu. It'll give you 10 different descriptions, and you'll just click on the one that you think best fits with the term there, and you'll do that for each term. For your ID terms, you'll see 8 of them listed on here. You're only required to respond to 3. Okay, that's written out on the exam review as well as here on the instructions. You need 3 of the 8 terms. Some people look at this, they don't read it, they don't listen to what I'm saying, they just see a lot of text and they panic and they shut down. Please do not do that. If you need to, pause, take 3 deep breaths in through your nose, out through your mouth, and get back on. All right, now that you've had your time to come and listen, all you're doing here is copying and pasting and filling in a template. You'll have the term, and it'll say was, and then you're replacing this bolded text in brackets with your own words. All right. Then you'll see this term was significant because you replace the text there in the brackets. So let's go ahead and copy and paste all of this into the text box. All right. And I'm going to do exactly what it says. It's asking what the term was. So I need to write in here what the term was and what happened with it. I'll write out 1 to 3 sentences here. All right. I'm going to show you a sample of what this looks like in a minute here. I'm going to put my own text in here. And then again here, same thing. Was it historically significant? Because I'm going to replace that with my own text. Okay. And it's, of course, going to be either because it was the first, or because it was the last, or because it was an example of, or because, oops, that's not spell example, or because it demonstrated, and then you just finish the sentence, and you have the 3 sentences if you need to expand on that. Okay, really straightforward. So you're going to pick 3 of these 8 you feel most comfortable answering. Only respond to 3. I will not read more than 3, so make sure you're only doing the 3. That's all you need to do. This is 60% of the quiz grade. And what you'll see on your exam is this exact same format, but all we're doing here is adding on an essay question, all right? We're also adding on some potential terms for your ID and matching for the exam, but this should really give you a preview of what to expect for the exam, and it'll also give you an opportunity to practice some of the same terms that might show up on there, okay? Couple key pointers I want to show you guys right quick before I jump straight on to the example ID terms. A few things I want you to look out for. We're trying to get concise writing here. We're trying to simply say, who or what was this thing? What happened with it? Why was it significant? Okay, each of those portions. Who or what was it? What happened with it? 1 to 3 sentences. Why was it significant? 1 to 3 sentences. Don't overdo it. Don't feel like you need to tell me the whole story, tell me every single thing going on with this thing, every person involved. Just tell me who or what it was, what happened with it, why it was significant. All right, I'm looking more for quality than quantity here. A couple other pointers though. For a history class, we're writing about the past, so we need to keep our writing in the past tense. We also want to, by that standard, keep the term's historical significance within the period we're studying. And what I mean by that is don't tell me about how this relates to today, all right, or these days or nowadays. That's not because I don't want you to be able to make those types of connections. There was a very valuable skill there to be able to see how what we're learning about in the past does impact and fit within our present day. But I also want us to be able to develop the skill of keeping it grounded within the period we're looking at. Big reason for that is a lot of people kind of use this as a cop out to not really answer the question. All right, they'll just say, oh, well, this led up to today. Okay, yes, every moment in the past led up to today. Or this gave us the great freedom we have today. And they start operating under this assumption that everything was so horrible and is now so great, and that it's gradually gotten us to this greatest moment of time, which is just far too simple to truly understand the nuanced nature of history. So we're not getting into that. Point I want you to get here. Do not use words like today, present times, modern times in your significance, or really anywhere in your response. Doing so will lose you points. Okay, so don't do that. Another thing, I am asking for college level writing. That means things like watching your spelling and grammar, making sure your writing reads clearly, capitalizing the first words of sentences, ending sentences with punctuation. Very simple things. That being said, I'm not looking for a complex language that's all flowery and different than how you usually write. Okay, I'm asking you to keep your language simple and straightforward. I had a professor who used to always tell us this analogy here. Don't ramble on about how you reside in a domicile with a canine and a feline, and you are filled with the greatest despair that a man could possibly imagine, because on the day before this day, the canine consumed the feline. No, to say I live in a house with a dog and a cat. I'm really sad because yesterday my dog ate my cat. It's gonna get your point across a lot more clearly. Keep your language simple, but let's do use college level writing in terms of the things I've listed here. With all this in mind, let's go and take a look at a sample of these ID terms I provided for you as well here on Canvas. Back to the home page here. Go open up our sample ID term. Again, you can view it through here, but I always prefer to download them. Get in here, enable editing. And here you got a sample. Here's the exact instructions you'll see on Canvas. Here I'm using an example term from a 1301 class. 1302, if you guys open this document on your Canvas shell, you'll see an example ID term that's relevant to your class. But here, the term we're looking at is Christopher Columbus. All right, so all we're doing is copying this text here and filling in the blanks where it tells us to. Okay. And if you copy and fill in those blanks, you should wind up with something like one of these later two responses. Okay. So what I've provided here is I provided two poor responses and then one good response and one excellent response. 1302, again, y'all have a different term on there, but you'll see that same thing laid out for you in that same order. So if you look here, this first response, it has all kinds of issues with it. It says Christopher Columbus discovered America. He's important because his discovery allows us to have the country we live in, and that's why we enjoy the freedom we do today. See what I mean there about how this person's just using a cop out to not really think about the significance? That doesn't really make any sense. That's why I want us to avoid those kinds of things. Furthermore, this is not written in college level writing. They haven't even bothered capitalizing the names Christopher Columbus or the word America, even though we see squiggly red lines under them telling us how we could easily fix these things. They haven't taken the time to do that, so that's going to seriously cost some points. Furthermore, they didn't bother to capitalize the first letter of the sentence or to end the sentence with punctuation. All these things are just going to make this a very low scoring response. It also doesn't seem to hit the main points that were covered about this term in class at all. Instead, they start talking about today, making it seem to me like they very likely didn't take the time to look through their notes or to take notes at all, one or the other. Okay, so can't give a lot of credit there. Another poor response. Between 25 August and 31 October 1451 to 20 May 1506, Christopher Columbus was an Italian explorer, navigator, Republic of Genoa, blah, 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 all this stuff. Number one, this isn't using the format I've asked you to. Okay, all you need to do is copy and paste. Okay, if you copy and paste, you're going to have Christopher Columbus was blah, 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 blah. Christopher Columbus was historically significant because blah, 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 blah. That is not what I'm seeing here at all. This is just a bunch of mumbo jumbo. But the biggest problem I have with this is that it's full of material that was not covered in class sources. Okay, I never mentioned these dates because I don't care about these dates. What difference do they make? Didn't talk about who he's from the Republic of Genoa. Didn't say anything about the Catholic monarchs. And this seems to miss the main points that were covered, but instead it's just covering all these little trivial details. This really looks like something that was very likely copy and pasted from the internet and maybe slightly edited. All right, so a good response would be something like this. Christopher Columbus was a sailor who tried to help Spain establish a route with Asia, and then they expand on that a little bit. Okay, so they're copying from the template and just filling in the blanks, telling me this term was, tell me what it was, and what happened with it. All right, and then the second part they've copied and pasted. Christopher Columbus was historically significant because. All right, and they're telling me what his voyages led to using one of those components of historical significance. Boom. This is exactly what I'm looking for. All right. This is also in college level writing. They've given me complete, straightforward sentences. It all makes sense. They've capitalized the first word of each sentence and they've used periods. Yet this is all very simple, straightforward language. It's nothing flowery and over the top. Lastly, let's look at the excellent response. This uses that exact same format, copying and pasting from the template, and it's filled in the blanks with the same way, telling us who Columbus was and what happened with him, and then why he was significant. Only thing I really gave this one a little more credit for is it expands just a little bit on what they're saying here, right? So this one says that his voyages led to further European exploration and colonization, also kicked off the Columbian Exchange. Great, that's spot on. But this one took it just a step further without getting lost in the sauce. They said he's insignificant because his voyages spurred further exploration and colonization in the Americas. Furthermore, it launched the phenomenon known as the Columbian Exchange, and they described what that means. Okay, so they're taking it just a step further, but still staying within 1 to 3 sentences. So that's really what's going to separate this one from that one. Regardless, though, this is a quality response. If you get something like this, you're going to make an A. So, again, all you're doing here, copying your response, pasting it into the text box, and replacing the brackets with your own text. This is just showing you what this all would look like once you get your final response. If you have any questions about this, let me know. I'm glad to help. This is something you definitely want to get down because you'll be doing these same types of terms for all quizzes and all exams moving forward. You want to make sure you're comfortable with this. This is it for now. I'm available if you need me. Y'all have a good one.